Alright, part 3 of the X748 disassembly. Now, I posted video number 2 a little while, I don't know, probably a week or so ago. Depends on how the videos come out. One thing I did not show is how to remove the footrest, or I don't think I did. What I'm working on is I actually took a number of pictures, and I'm going to do like a tutorial overview type deal, or at least I'm going to try to. I don't know if that'll work, but that's what I'm going to try to do. Basically how you take the foot pedals off and the 4 bolts that hold it on, and the diff lock pedal. So I will eventually get to that part of the disassembly. What I'm going to work on today is I'm going to get I'm going to point out one thing that I found very interesting, and then at the same time I'm going to get the drive shaft out and start working on some of the internals in between the frame, but that requires me to remove the fuel tank. So one thing that I did find interesting, I was just kind of playing around earlier, started to loosen up these bolts to take the dash or the dash mount out, etc., to get to all the electrical stuff in there. And I noticed, and I put it's a 10mm wrench, put that on there, and it is actually broken off. Now, one of the things that the X748 or the X series, one of the things that some people complain about is the frame flexing, mostly the frame flexing and the radiator cracking from the frame flexing. Now, what I learned yesterday, and I have no proof to back this up, is that the radiator is pretty isolated in the frame. It's not tied fast to anything. This assembly right here is what mounts the radiator, and it goes down. Let's see here if I can get it in here just right. And it's mounted in there something like that. Not perfectly correct, but it's very isolated. The radiator is very isolated. But the fact that this bolt right here is sheared off, and it looks like it's been sheared off for quite a while, means that this frame is flexed quite a bit, or at least I would think so. But you know, it is what it is. Obviously, that could be from the damage of this whole frame right here being bent. I'm not really sure. Certainly could be that, not necessarily the normal use or anything. So anyway, let's get back here and look at what we need to do to take the fuel tank off. Now, this has got a little bit of diesel fuel in it. I wish it was a warmer time of year, because I would spray all this off to make it a lot cleaner. But it is what it is for this time of year. It's really too cold to go outside and do much anything. Considering today, I don't think the wind chill got above -30. The wind blew 20 to 25 miles an hour all day, and I don't think it got above -5 or so. So, yeah, definitely not washing anything. So what we have here is, so all the wiring back here, you obviously have your lights, your reverse lights, and your tail lights. This right here would be to your power point and your switch for your power point. This right here is the fuel pump and the sender. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that. Now I'll have to disconnect these fuel hoses to take the tank off. Now what's really important here is these fuel hoses. One is the intake, and one is the return. This one right here, I would imagine, would be the return given its size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take these off of here, and I'll do that out of the video because you don't want to watch me do all that. And then these, I think, should just lift out of here. I think I got a shot back. I'll vacuum up some of that just to make sure. But let's see how much diesel fuel is in there. You can't see any, so that's good. But I do know there's diesel fuel in there. So I will work on getting all of this wiring harness undone and whatnot, and then I'll go ahead and undo the fuel lines here, the intake and the return line, and get these all pulled out. I think these are just little clamps that you can pull out with like a screwdriver or something. So we'll go from there. Alright, so got the tank off. It's sitting right over there. Pretty easy stuff. Not a big deal taking the fuel lines off and getting the electrical connections out. Here are little things that we're holding electrical lines in. You can see the little barbs there. Basically, you can kind of just squeeze in from the sides, and they'll come right out. You're not damaging the tank too much or anything like that. So there's 3 of those that you have to take out, and that gives us access basically to, like I said, I want to get the drive shaft out. I'll probably go ahead and pull the 4-wheel drive shaft out as well, and I'll go ahead and take, let's see if I can start working on the wiring harness. The wiring harness is always pretty hard to take out because it's really weaved in there, and then also start working on loosen up some of the springs and whatnot in there, and we will go from there. So what I'm going to work on first is getting the drive shaft out, which I'm guessing, if it's anything like the rest of the Deeres with the K91, K92, what I'll need is either a 15 or 18 millimeter ratchet, or 15 or 18 millimeter socket on a ratchet, and just need to take the bolts out. You can see right here just those bolts, and they'll come out, and then we can pull the drive shaft out. So yeah, we'll go from there and see how everything comes out. Alright, so I have the main drive shaft off, and I figured next I would get the 4-wheel drive shaft off. To do that, what I'll need to do is I need to take off those 2 bolts that you see, 2 bolts and nuts right here. Now, unlike the main drive shaft, these actually have a nut on them, or these bolts actually have a nut on them instead of being threaded into the drive shaft itself, the yoke itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use an impact and take them out. Should be pretty easy. Generally these things are not hard. Now what I'll have to do up front is I have to take and I'll show you this in just a second, is I will have to take the boot off of the drive shaft, because there is a boot on there. For any of you that have 4-wheel drive X machines. And so, and I'm wondering if it just slides on there. Maybe it slides on there, although I doubt it. So we'll go ahead and take the boot off, but that's how you get that's how you loosen up the back part of the drive shaft. And then up here I'll have to get it's probably like an 8, or I'll probably just get a flat bladed screwdriver and take that boot off, or loosen that boot up so I can move it back a little bit. What I have done is I've gone ahead and coiled up the fuel hoses right here, because I'll have to take out the fuel hoses. I'll have to take some things apart over there on that far side, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this boot up, and once I get that done, I'll show you how the front drive shaft is attached to the front axle. Alright, so this is actually a lot easier than I thought. So here's the back end of the front, the 4-wheel drive shaft, and here is the front end. It is just a slip fit in there with the splines, which that's what I kind of figured, but it wasn't until I got this a little loose and moved this back and forth that I was able to determine that. This right here is by no means holding on the drive shaft, but it kind of makes it difficult to get your hand in there and move it back and forth, because over time what will happen is, and you can see it in there, gunk and everything will build up on the splines itself, and so it kind of took a good kind of forceful pull to get the drive shaft off. So now that the drive shaft is off, I'll get everything kind of organized a little bit better, and we will go from there. I think the next thing what I'm going to do is work on the wiring harness, which that's going to be just a lot of me kind of pulling wires and everything, figuring out what goes where, in terms of trying to get it without tearing up anything. So, and I'll probably go ahead and also, although I don't want to get down on the floor because it's hard for me to actually lay down on the floor and get back up with my toe, which is my boot still, and so I may try to remove some of the draft arms and stuff like that, and we'll kind of go from there. So that's where we're at with the X748 part out. Got the drive shafts out, and we'll go from there. And thank you very much for watching.